Will you pray with me? God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations on all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So a couple of weeks ago, my daughter went camping with her donor's side of the family. She was gone from me for 5 days. She's 3 years old. It was the first time that she's been away from me for that long. I ached for her in ways that made my flesh feel hollow. It was a physical missing that I can't quite articulate in words, like an entire part of my personhood was missing, but when I thought of what was missing, it was something entirely distinct from me. My daughter. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and yet her own entity with nothing other than a psychic umbilical cord connecting us. A part of me, yet not me at all. This strange, detached phenomenon in parenting is something Elizabeth Stone sums up perfectly when she says making the decision to have a child is momentous. It is to decide forever to have your heart go walking around outside your body. Having Aurora gone for that long for the first time was a reminder of what I already knew, but had to split open to know yet again. It is in absence that we come to understand fully presence. What do I mean? I mean, missing Aurora for 5 days gave me 5 days worth of recognizing just what a significant piece of my life she has become in the 3 years that we've been living, moving, and having our being together on this planet. I heard trains whistle and her giggle with joy. Was she actually giggling in the flesh? No, but I heard her. I saw books about dinosaurs and I saw her eyes light up with fascination. Was she actually there looking at books about dinosaurs? No, but I saw her. I put my head on my pillow before going to bed and recognized that she wouldn't be crawling in with me before I woke up in the morning. Was she there? Nope, but I could feel her. I walked by Harambe in the mornings at church, watched the Freedom Scholars and Garden of Dreams students doing the dance moves to something inside so strong. Was Aurora dancing and singing with them? Nope. But I was singing and dancing with her. So here's a confession. Sometimes I take for granted that her little body will be in the bed in the morning, that she'll need a bath at night, that she'll scream my name when I pick her up from school, that she will hold Isaiah's hand as she moves from the car to the back door of our house. I take for granted the pink-tinted flesh, the huge brown eyes, the curly wisps that bounce all over when she plays, her perfect singing pitch, the adoring, compassionate gaze, the easily hurt feelings, the expansive life that is my daughter. But the minute she is gone, the minute she is away from me, I become acutely aware of the expansive life that is my daughter. The ache of absence is intolerable sometimes. It is. It's intolerable. It feels like an oceanic panic of grief, a tidal wave coming to knock our tiny selves into drowning waters, cold and erratic. It is especially horrendous when we know someone isn't coming back. No matter how much I missed Aurora while she was at Lake Michigan, I had a pretty good sense that she was coming home. Dina Spencer doesn't have that. Donna Gray doesn't have that. At some point soon, the Harmon family, they won't have that. Being in the finality of death is an ache of absence unlike any other. And yet, even there, isn't the oceanic tidal wave itself a presence of a kind? One massive indicator of just how much our loved one mattered in our life. If we are threatened to death by their death, then it stands that our life was and continues to be constituted by their life. The grief of absence is in direct proportion to the power of presence. It is a spiritual fact. When people come to me in pastoral care, absolutely falling apart after someone they love has died, apologetic almost that they can't pull it together, I'm often surprised by it because I don't see someone falling apart. I see someone in love. Love isn't just sunset honeymoon scenes, kisses at the altar. It's also tear-soaked cheeks that just refuse to smile. I can discern a person's quality of love by witnessing the quantity of their grief. The ache of absence is an indicator of love, and it doesn't feel like that all the time. It feels like absence. It aches. Somebody in here better say amen because y'all are crying. I see you. I see you. It aches. It hurts. It hurts like hell. Like something is wrong. Like something is torturously wrong. When someone is gone, we feel they are gone. It doesn't always feel like love. It feels like absence of love. Yet again, though, I would contend that it's in the goneness, in the absence, that a person is most eternally felt. I think many of us feel the goneness, feel the absence, and it hurts so much that we shut off and turn away because we can't take the finality of death. But we short-circuit a kind of presence when we do that. It's a bit of a conundrum, afraid that we will just feel the ache of absence forever, that we will just feel what's gone forever, that the pain will overwhelm us to the point of no return. We don't allow our sorrow its proper reach, and so we fail to touch the presence beyond it. In absence is presence. In absence is presence. You got to face and go into one in order to reach and touch the other. So there were moments when Aurora was gone that I missed her so much I couldn't take it. So I just decided to stop going into her nursery because it smelled too much like her. Made me ache inside. I intentionally switched my attention to something else if I heard a train whistle because it made me ache inside. I didn't walk by Harambe in the mornings because it made me ache inside. And you know what happened to me? A numbness took over my body. I couldn't feel my mother's heart beating the way I usually can. So this is a miniature version of something I see people do in our culture all the time on a larger scale. A relationship ends, a person dies, a community has a crisis and never recovers, and instead of staying in the ache of absence, folks find ways to shut down, shut off, get distracted, and eventually they go numb. Of course, there is less acute pain that way. There is. There's less acute pain when you go numb. And we can't experience the presence of presence when we are numb. So we not only miss those that are gone, but we miss the way they stay alive after death. Death is not the antidote to life. Numbness is the antidote to life. So I think Martha offers us a beautiful version of leaning into the ache of absence. A spiritually mature version of leaning into the ache of absence. She doesn't use her brother's death as a means of avoiding God. She goes out to God with it. She confronts God. She names God's absence and how she perceives that absence impacted the events of Lazarus' death. Here's why what Martha does strikes me so courageous, so brave. When we perceive that someone or something, a friend, a loved one, or God has been willfully absent, it takes a lot of faith to beckon their presence after that. It's so much easier to stand back and say, well, you weren't here for me, so why the heck would I reach out for you? But that's not what Martha does. She goes out on the road before Jesus even arrives at the house. If you had been here, she says. She seeks and enters into Jesus' presence in the face of her rage about his absence. So I don't know about the rest of you, but when someone abandons me, my defenses are all about protecting me from any more abandonment. I don't take comfort in confronting people when I feel abandoned. I take comfort in staying away from them so they don't abandon me again. Martha does something else. It's not self-protection. It's not avoidance of what Jesus has done. It's not letting the relationship go. It's spiritual maturity. She names what she has experienced, and she gives the relationship a chance to recover. She gives Jesus the chance to be who he is again. So here's the thing. Jesus could have responded to Martha by saying, "Stop whining, I was coming all along." He could have said, "You don't know what was going on for me, but I'm here now, so what's your issue?" He didn't say that. She named the absence, and he gave her presence. She named the absence, and he gave her presence. So that's not always guaranteed in our relationships on earth. But if I know anything about God, then the Jesus of this story is the real deal. I have a colleague who lost her very, very, very best lifelong friend who was way too young and way too full of life to have died so suddenly, leaving her precious family and important life's work undone. My colleague who lost this friend of hers shut down, spiritually speaking, for a long time. And then she went on a retreat. And while talking to a nun about her experience of feeling separated from God as a result of her loss and grief, the nun suggested she write a letter to God about the experience of feeling separated. The nun suggested she take all that rage, all those questions, all the doubt and love and hopelessness and fear, and take it all directly to God by writing a letter. And guess what happened? In the midst of getting direct with God about her perceptions of his absence, my friend had an experience of God's presence. In that process, she felt God with her for the first time in over a year. It connected her. Admitting our response or our responses to absence in prayer takes bravery, especially if we are admitting them to the very source of what our perceptions are about, but there's connection and there's presence to be gained as a result. So I want to ask you, can you be direct with God about your experience of God? In moments when you feel like God is absent, can you be honest with that to God? Or does the perceived absence eclipse your willingness to engage the relationship? Mary goes out to meet Jesus on the road. That's an extremely important piece of this story. She didn't wait for God to come to her. She went out on the road. She may have felt the absence of God, but that didn't stop her from seeking God. And as soon as she saw him, she confronted him about it. So I want to ask you, do you meet God or do you wait for God to come to you? Do you wait to feel the presence of God, or do you enter prayer or drawing or dancing or yoga or wherever you meet God? Do you wait or do you go of your own will? I want to offer to everyone in the room that it is in our periods of aching for God and the perceived absence of God that we come to know most acutely, most deeply about the presence of God. That if we can lean in to the ache of absence, we can reach presence. That's an if. The alternative is numbing out. One leads to death before dying, the other offers resurrection. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? And the one who ached, the woman who searched and sobbed for truth in absence, the sister who loved her dead brother enough to risk confronting God, Martha, Shiro, sister to all the faithful, said, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. And guess what? That woman, that brave, confrontational, loving woman, saw her brother raised from death to life. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, I believe. You are the one coming into the world in absence, in presence, for glory. Amen.